Welcome, folks, to the latest installment of Sports with Joe and Ish. I'm the sports editor of the San Marcos Daily Record, Joe Vazelli, and I'm here with our sports reporter at the Daily Record, Ishmael Johnson. And Ish, we both were at the game on Thursday night for Texas State, and going into the game, I think we thought two things about Texas State. They needed to pick up a victory to really put themselves back in the bowl race, and they really hadn't played a complete game all season, and Texas State's able to accomplish both with picking up a 45-27 victory over Arkansas State.
Yeah, I think there was one more thing we were probably expecting. It was probably, them facing another top team on a national stage that maybe it wasn't going to be, the Texas State. It was going to be kind of a repeat of what we've seen, but it was the complete opposite of that. They came out wire to wire, pretty much dominated, controlled the game. Very uncharacteristic, but a welcome sight for a lot of the fans that have seen this team struggle on at home, oddly enough, on big stages against the top-tier teams. And, Robert Lowe with a big game from him. The defense played fantastic, wire-to-wire, like we said. And, yeah, they got the big win. And just when we thought that they were out of the bowl picture or really struggling with the bowl picture, it looks pretty comfortable right now.
Yeah, and heading into the final couple weeks of the season, obviously they have Georgia State coming up next, a team they're 1-10 this season, 0-7 in the Sun Belt. They'll be wrapping up their season as well, and so Texas State can't underestimate the Panthers. They've been a team that's played some teams close this year, but also at the same time they've also really struggled. So I think the biggest thing for them is you don't want to let them hang around.
Yeah.
If you can kind of do what they were able to do against Arkansas State, where they were able to get up early, stretch that lead to 10, to 14 points, you might be able to finish them off because they don't really have much to play for. Yeah. Although they could play spoiler role, they do know that if they're able to prevent Texas State from getting the 7th win, maybe they take Texas State out of the bowl picture. But I think, as we've been talking about, really the key is that first quarter and being able to kind of get up on them and maybe get them to kind of mail things in a bit.
Yeah, we've seen Texas State kind of play down to some opponents like Idaho, like a New Mexico State, and they can't do that this weekend. They have to realize what's on the line. But like you said, Georgia State's going to be playing spoiler. That's their senior night. That's going to be some big for their seniors to get that first win in the Sun Belt and their senior seasons and their college career on a positive note. And as we saw Thursday night, senior night can provide a big spark, big emotion, and a big motivating factor to a team.
Yeah, and I think they're similar in some ways. At Texas State, when you come really close to winning the big game and you're just not able to do it, you just need that evidence that you can kind of win the big game.
Yeah.
And with Texas State being able to do that on Thursday night, that's the evidence that they need. And I think with Georgia State, they're the same way. They just need some evidence that, look, we can contend in the Sun Belt, and then they might break through. So, I think Coach Franchione kind of joked about it after the game. Hopefully they beat Clemson to maybe try to maybe get them too overconfident or whatever for the game, but that didn't end up happening. Of course, Clemson beats Georgia State 28-0, but I think they have to be careful in this game because they have had the tendency to play down opponents this year, and Georgia State isn't exactly. They've got some talent on both sides. Nick Arbuckle, their quarterback, Joseph Peterson on defense. So they're a team that can spring some upsets. They went all the way down the wire with Lafayette earlier this season. I think in a 34-28 loss. So they got to be careful.
Yeah, it's luckily Texas State is coming off their best performance of the season. I would say probably since the Pine Bluff game. Dating back to that. Robert Lowe was on point. Tyler Jones was on point. There were no big mistakes. Tyler Jones had a few, missed options here and there early on. I think they recorded him with 3 fumbles, I believe, 1 lost. But other than that, Texas State's coming off of a high note, and they have to carry that momentum, stomp their foot in the ground, and really take control early, score early, put Georgia State down early, and just keep hold the whole game, as we saw against Arkansas State. If they can do this against Arkansas State for an entire game, they can definitely do that against Georgia State.
And if they're able to come out with an impressive victory over Georgia State, with what they were able to do against Arkansas State, really, we all know the Sun Belt has 3 bowl tie-ins: the New Orleans Bowl, the Camellia Bowl, and the GoDaddy Bowl. And if they're able to get to 7-5 Texas State, there's a great chance that they could be in the New Orleans Bowl.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about UL Lafayette. This would be their 4th year in a row. Maybe some fatigue on both sides. Maybe the New Orleans Bowl doesn't want to have Lafayette, a local team that doesn't attract maybe the amount of hotel dollars and the people that want to stay the entire weekend. They want a team from out of state that would do that. And then Lafayette, they might want to go to a different game, whether it's the GoDaddy Bowl or some other bowl. So I think it's out there for Texas State to go to the Premier Sun Belt Bowl, which, as we all know, would be a huge step for the program, as well as you get the 20 extra days of bowl practice that you can kind of build on for next year as well.
Exactly. And if you tell, I mean, a lot of people have an issue with, the crowd attendance, is that going to travel? If you tell Texas State students we're playing in New Orleans, that'll make it. That's in and of itself, that's going to make people go. Texas State has a huge alumni base in Houston that will travel as well. Texas State will travel to a bowl. That shouldn't be an issue to anybody. And I think the bowl sponsors realize that, especially, like you said, the New Orleans Bowl, a huge tourist city that is getting fatigued with a school waking up the day of and driving, how many hours it is right down the road and then leaving that night. Texas State, the fans, the alumni, the supporters will make that a weekend and drive so much money to that city. And even the other bowls, the GoDaddy Bowl, the Camellia Bowl, same way. They're going to be looking at Texas State like, this team can travel, this crowd can travel. It's going to be the first bowl game in the school's history. It's going to be a big event, and all three of them are going to see the appeal, I feel like.
Thanks, folks, for tuning in to the latest installment of Sports with Joe and Ish. Of course, throughout this week, you can check out SanMarcosRecord.com. We'll provide up-to-date coverage as the Bobcats get prepared for this week's game against Georgia State. So for Joe and Ish, we're signing off.